Now get ready for a strange Warhol-like trip through the cyber streets of New York City.
Next up, to a man who's seen as a bit of a trendsetter in the world of tech, a cool hunter.
Our last call spotlight tonight is fascinating. It's basically the story of the rise and fall of this guy who they basically call the Warhol of the web.
And he said Andy Warhol had it wrong. People don't want to be famous for 15 minutes. They want to be famous 15 minutes every day.
This time, the man getting his 15 minutes of fame is a cyber-savvy New Yorker named Josh Harris.
Internet pioneer and artist Joshua Harris.
Josh Harris.
This is Josh Harris.
Josh anticipated the power of the internet and used it to make his fortune and subsequently to lose his mind.
Welcome to Internet Underground, the podcast where we explore the hidden corners of the World Wide Web. I'm your host, Luke Sims, and each episode will be diving into a different topic that shines a light on the weird and wonderful world of the internet. On today's show, I'm going to introduce you to the greatest internet pioneer that you've never heard of, Josh Harris. So, who exactly is Josh Harris? Born in the early 1960s in Ventura, California, Josh was the youngest child among his three brothers and three sisters. Included within his rather large family were his mom and his dad. His mother was a social worker working at a jail who often had little energy left for her children after a long day at work. His father was a CIA agent who wasn't home that much due to being stationed out of the country for business. So right out of the gate, and unfortunately like many others born into his generation, Josh had a bit of a difficult childhood.
Ventura, California, some anonymous apartment complex. Father wasn't around much, mother worked all day. Three brothers, 2 bunk beds. Oldest brother is 9 years older than me, so I have teenage brothers in high school going through their own puberty issues. Next room is 3 sisters having at it. There's no privacy in that kind of environment anywhere.
Josh claims that he was raised largely by television, which he credits with teaching him many social norms. It was also used as his primary source of guidance and companionship. He was especially influenced by the show Gilligan's Island and saw himself as a combination of the show's creator Sherwood Schwartz and the show's main character Gilligan.
My emotionality is not derived from other humans, but rather from Gilligan. That's both deep and heavy. I've been programmed by somebody else's dreams. That's who I am. It's a very scary, scary thing.
Not much else is known about Josh's childhood, or rather, he hasn't personally shared much else about his upbringing. So let's fast forward a little bit to when, as a young adult, Josh had a moment of insight that would go on to change his own life and help form the internet as we all know it today. The year is 1980. After graduating from high school, Josh decided to further his education by pursuing a degree in communications at UC San Diego. His friends at school nicknamed him Mr. Communications because apparently it seemed to them that he was always nurturing these secret plans. Turns out he kinda was. During his time at college, Josh was able to catch a glimpse into the future.
In 1980, I was taking a course, and a gentleman by the name of Frank Webster went to the drawing board, and he basically showed a diagram which would be kindergarten by today's standards of how you can have communications on a network. And it was obvious to me that this was the future. It was more like, oh yeah, of course, that makes sense. That's where it's all going. And then I just stayed on that vein of online. And believe me, in the 1980s, online was not exactly fashionable.
In 1984, Josh dropped out of graduate school and with $900 in his pocket, headed for New York City. He was able to find a cheap apartment and a job at a market research firm called Link Resources. For the next 2 years, he worked as an analyst covering videotex, which was essentially a precursor to the internet. He then used the knowledge gained from this experience to start up his own research and consulting firm, Jupiter Communications. Jupiter was a company that conducted surveys and made projections on how people would use computers and the internet. And it wasn't long before Jupiter was recognized as the leading source for market research and analysis for the web.
I would call myself a very gifted amateur businessman. Very gifted, as good as you can get. I specialized in the internet, and as the internet started hitting, I was a regular on CNN, the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, USA Today, the Los Angeles Times, International Press, etc., etc. You know, I knew exactly what I was doing.
After 8 years of running Jupiter, Josh had made a comfortable living for himself. Jupiter was established, and Josh was seen as a spokesperson within the business side of the internet. Things were going well, but then they just got even better. Josh was able to catch a glimpse into the future again. Chat for the internet. In 1994, Josh left Jupiter to start a new company called Pseudo Programs. He took a couple of programmers from Jupiter along with him to start creating an internet chat application for one of the biggest online service providers at the time, Prodigy Services.
From Jupiter, I just knew the numbers. I knew if I created chat for Prodigy, I was going to rock their audience.
Within a year, Pseudo became the single largest third-party billable traffic generator for Prodigy. And it wasn't long until Prodigy just bought the chat platform from Josh entirely. This transaction made Josh one of the first internet millionaires from New York City. With 2 successful internet adjacent businesses under his belt and now quite a bit more than $900 in his pocket, Josh Harris was starting to make a name for himself outside of the usual business tycoons and traditional media. He even started experimenting a little bit and revealing a bit more of his artistic side as a surrealist artist. He went on to create the first of many art projects, a short animation titled Launder My Head, The Future of Our Illusion. The animation features a group of people with TVs for heads, repeating the same phrase.
Launder my head, launder my head, launder, 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 launder my head.
Launder, 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 launder,
Launder my head.
The lyrics came to me and I spent 2 years turning it into a little piece of animation. The art that I make is explaining to humans what's going to happen next. The social nature of things is going to be done virtually. The next magical medium is the virtual world.
So yeah, a little weird, but you know what? In 1999, the thing that came next was about to happen, and Josh had finally reached the moment in time that he knew was inevitable. The dot-com revolution.
Searching for a website, a window to the world, got to get online.
Take a spin, now you're in with the techno set. You're going surfing on the internet.
Amidst the astronomical success that internet companies were seeing in the late 90s, Josh knew it was finally time to pivot. And it was time to take Pseudo to the next level. Being a child of television, Josh knew that he would be the one that would pioneer internet for TV. Before you knew it, Pseudo Programs became Pseudo.com.
Pseudo right now, as we sit here, is the only internet television network that really is big, works in scale, and actually has quality programming. Actually, the way that we started, we took this big space, 10,000 square feet here in Soho. Every 3 weeks, we throw a big downtown party in Manhattan.
We started out with about 7 employees, and the idea was we're going to produce 1 hour of real AM radio about the internet. People all over the world can access this 1 hour.
As a result of that, over time, we've established a really excellent talent flow.
So we did that for a while as radio, and then it unfolded into streaming video, and that's where we are today.
We're not a website, we're not a zine. We just want to provide our audience with an exciting net experience.
The overnight success of Pseudo's rebrand allowed Josh to secure more than $30 million in funding and gave him the opportunity to assemble a staff of over 300 young creatives. During this period, Josh was known for hosting legendary parties in New York City that were popular among those interested in the emerging culture of the web and technology.
We do these interactive parties about once a month, bring down the sort of different groups from downtown New York, from arts and cinema and music.
It quickly became clear that Josh was using these extravagant parties in an effort to attract young talent to come work for him. And before you knew it, Pseudo became known as the creative hub for young people in New York, with a culture similar to that of Andy Warhol's Factory.
Like you could feel it in your soul when you know something is bigger than you. I was talking to Josh and I said I would lick the floors to work here. And he was like, well, you're in luck.
Guided by his lifelong fascination of television, Josh ran Pseudo.com like a traditional on-air network, with a lineup of shows covering topics like music, celebrity news, technology, and even gaming. Josh actually gave many people their start in the industry, and 20 years later, some Pseudo alumni now hold high-level positions at media companies like NBC and Disney. One particularly notable example would have to be Scott Rubin, who hosted Pseudo's video game show All Games Network before later going on to co-found his own digital TV network, G4 TV. If you haven't picked up on the similarities yet, Pseudo was essentially a curated version of Twitch.tv that existed all the way back in the late 90s. But unfortunately, it may have been a little bit ahead of its time. Streaming video barely worked back then, but that didn't stop Josh because he knew that this would eventually be the future and saw Pseudo as an opportunity to be first to market. Which reminds me, on the topic of markets, in October of 1999, Jupiter Communications went public. Still having a sizable chunk of shares in the company, Josh's net worth shot up to over $30 million.
My first fortune was made from Jupiter Communications. When it went public, I sat there and I watched it go from 21 to 40. You could just watch your wealth grow. Literally, I watched myself be worth, at a moment in time, $36 million. You don't believe it. It's irrational to you.
After nearly 2 decades of having numerous breakthroughs, Josh had finally made it. He became filthy rich from betting big on the fact that the internet would go mainstream. While some may think that this is the end of Josh's story and that he would go on to live out the rest of his days as a dot-com millionaire sailing out into the sunset, this is actually where the tale of Josh Harris truly begins. This is also the start of a new story. The story of Lovey the Clown, Josh's alter ego. At many of Pseudo's downtown New York parties, Josh could be found wearing red lipstick and white face makeup with his ears and forehead painted green and blue. He would then go on to introduce himself as Lovey the Clown to fellow partygoers. It seemed that Lovey was an ode to the Gilligan Islands character Eunice Wentworth Howell, often nicknamed Lovey throughout the series. In the show, the character is a rich socialite married to a millionaire businessman. And Josh was reportedly fairly serious about the persona, and when asked about it, he explained that he used the alter ego as a way to explore the power of media and celebrity. But the character also served as a way to generate publicity. However, it might not have created the media attention that Josh had initially hoped for. Even during the crazy years of the late 90s in a progressive city like New York, dressing in drag was a unique choice for a multimillionaire running an internet TV network.
Like, we would have these, like, corporate parties or whatever. We were trying to impress people to get money, and you would show up as Lovey. And, that's crazy.
They're trying to make a business out of this and get advertised, and the guy who's the CEO is dressing up as a clown.
I want to know why he's doing business in this manner.
No surprises here, Lovey absolutely terrified pseudo investors, and with the belief Josh was beginning to tarnish their brand reputation, they started trying to push him out of the company. Ever since his huge payday, Josh had been acting out and caring less and less about his business. Towards the end of '99, Josh decided that it was time to move on from Pseudo. He later went on the record stating that Pseudo was a fake company he made as an art project. It was directly after leaving Pseudo that he would go on to create his next art project, an exhibition event titled Quiet, We Live in Public.
Here, we're building a capsule hotel to find out what the internet is going to look like when it takes over. You get the TV here, right? And you can see all these other people. The image I have in my mind is like in a concentration camp. You know, those pictures where they're all facing forward.
With the millennium quickly approaching, Josh wanted to give people a glimpse into what the digital future may look like. His plan was to host an Orwellian Big Brother social experiment that would take place entirely within an underground bunker in Manhattan. The main idea was that everything would be free for the citizens of Quiet, but there was a catch. The people participating were constantly being monitored. The bunker was wired with cameras, microphones, and monitors to allow for complete surveillance. And when I say complete surveillance, I mean it. There were cameras in the pod hotels, the performance areas, the dining rooms, and even the bathrooms and showers.
You change the channel, it changes you to other compartments in here. If you're both locked on the same channel, you can talk to each other. It's not that it's, who says that's necessarily bad? It may be, and we'll find that out. It might be that you get so intimate with people in their intimate moments that you really get to know them. Don't bring your money with you. Everything is free, except the video that we capture of you. That we own.
Quiet had everything you could think of. Chefs catering your meals, an open bar stacked with top shelf alcohol, and a ton of free drugs. It had people acting as police, it had a church, and it even had a gun range.
Pretty neat, huh?
Josh brought in a ton of artists from all around the world to contribute to the event with art installations. He put everything he had into ensuring Quiet would be a success. It's reported that he spent almost $2 million on the project.
I spend money like it's sand through the fingers of time. My business associates, they're worth a lot of money, but they're going to buy a big house or 2 big houses, a couple cars, have their kids. They'll never really spend their money properly.
After a ton of preparation, it was finally time to start this experiment that would last a whole month. On December 3rd, 1999, registration opened, and people came in droves to be a part of this once-in-a-lifetime experience. In terms of applying, you'd need to provide your full name, address, phone number, and even your social insurance number. All of this, and then you'd need to do an in-person screening, an interrogation.
There's another element to this, which is we're going to record Stasi-type intelligence of what people are doing.
We started with very basic questions, and then we go into the groups: political, religious, psychological, emotional, sexual.
More than 150 people were accepted into the bunker and given their hotel pods. The experiment had officially begun.
This is rather Orwellian. Still haven't found out whether or not I'm a Podwellian, but we'll see soon enough.
You know, I'm marking my pod. I think what the idea is, as soon as a few more people start marking their pods, the rates will be on.
This is exactly the sort of project that we long to see in this great city.
The thing that's really interesting about this is that it's all free.
Yeah, where's the gun range?
Downstairs.
I want to do the gun.
You want to shoot guns?
I do.
Stay number 4. Oh, it's wonderful.
The whole thing really is as crazy as it sounds. It wasn't clear if Josh was trying to be a mastermind puppeteer of all these people, or if he was just acting like one of those parents that let their kids do anything. One thing was for sure though, people were loving it. After about a week, the citizens of Quiet were actually starting to feel comfortable. The novelty hadn't worn off yet, but for the next month, this was going to be their life, so they might as well make themselves at home. People began to do things that they wouldn't necessarily do in the real world. Despite the constant surveillance, they had a strong sense of freedom. They were living in public.
If I'm in a certain mood and I want to be hanging around certain people, I'm stuck with my family and my friends. The alleviation to that are virtual worlds.
As they say, we live in public, so we're all sharing here, no secrets.
It's almost like I've become detached from myself. Yes. Like, you know, I don't care if I go and pee on camera anymore.
Weeks were passing and everyone was having a blast. Constant partying was taking place, and they even celebrated Christmas in the bunker. But then towards the end of the experiment, things started to feel a little off, and realization of what was going on started to set in.
When I'm sleeping, I'm being filmed. I don't even notice it anymore.
You're seeing this monitor 24 hours a day. You have no privacy.
No, not today.
I think what breeds madness is the feeling that there's everyone else's minds and everyone else's energies all encompassing.
See, to me, this is, it's a very interesting phenomenon. We don't realize how often we are being filmed. It's wrong to invade people's privacy with cameras.
Even Josh started having mixed feelings on what was going on, what he was doing to all these people, and what he was doing to himself.
There's all these people around you in close quarters, and the more you get to know each other, the more alone you become. That's what this environment is doing to me.
The end of the century was nearing, and so was the sense of sanity. Things were taking a turn for the worse.
Day before the millennium, and we are not panicking.
Exactly.
We are definitely not afraid.
We need to consciously tell the infinite universe that man was here. Man was here.
This is sober and there's so much going
on. The whole table started, banging their fists on the table, trying to get me to serve them. People don't really know how to deal with free. The freeness is turning people into beasts.
On January 1st at 10 a.m., NYPD and the fire department shut everything down. Talk about crazy timing. Quiet was an event that culminated the beginning and end of an era. It was an exploration of blending the artistic and technological movements together as one. But by the end, Quiet turned into a chaotic and aggressive environment that was no longer safe. Some people believe that if the experiment continued longer than it did, that it would turn into a brainwashed cult. By the time Quiet was shut down, Josh didn't really care anymore. He had spent a ton of money on this thing and presumably gotten everything he needed from the experiment already. So where does he go from here? What does he do next? Strangely, he finds love. After Quiet, Josh decided to physically and mentally recharge by going on an extravagant fishing trip, likely inspired again by Gilligan's Island. During the trip, Harris became close with a woman by the name of Tanya Corin, a former pseudo-employee and the host of one of their lifestyle shows, Cherry Bomb. After the trip, Josh and Tanya began to spend a lot more time together and eventually entered a romantic relationship.
How do you think the trip on the Royal Polaris has affected our relationship?
When I was watching you fishing, I understood you a little better.
I'm really happy.
Yeah, you know why you're happy?
Why am I happy?
Because I'm happy.
You're happy?
If I'm happy, you're happy.
I think we're both happy.
Just a few months after being together, Josh asked Tanya to move in with him. It was time to start Josh's next experiment.
It's your sanctuary from the outside world, the most private place in your life. Unless you're the couple in our first story tonight. They installed nearly 36 cameras in their home and put their lives on display over the internet. Every breath, every bite, every move they made. But what began as a daring and very personal experiment became the toughest test their relationship ever faced. Perhaps to no one's surprise but their own, the couple's lives would begin to unravel while thousands of people watched.
After seeing what constant surveillance could do to other people, Josh thought it would only be fair to experiment on himself this time. Josh was able to convince Tanya to join in on the project by explaining that if their relationship could survive living in public, then it could survive anything. And much like Quiet, Josh's new project titled simply We Live in Public had cameras absolutely everywhere. In the bedroom, in the bathroom, the fridge, everywhere you could imagine. Even Josh's cat wasn't safe as there were cameras installed in the litter box. In addition to all of the cameras scattered across the apartment, Josh had 72 highly sensitive microphones installed so that you could hear anything and everything that was going on in his New York loft. Soon after all the technical requirements were ready, it was finally time to begin the experiment. Josh and Tanya were in this together, and back in the fall of 2000, you could watch their every move on weliveinpublic.com. On the website itself, there was a video screen on one side and a chat screen on the other, very similar to what pseudo.com did back then as well. Viewers would be able to toggle different cameras around the house and compare notes with each other on what had been going on each day. For the first couple of weeks, it was surprisingly quite a wholesome environment, and it looked like Josh and Tanya were actually having a lot of fun with it. And as soon as the website went live, hundreds of people were tuning in to join in on the fun as well.
This is great. I wish I had the guts to do what you were doing. Kudos.
Thanks, Freedom. Oh, you said, God, I'm hungry. And the person says, oh, are you hungry? You feel like pizza? You say, sure, I'll have some pizza. 20 minutes later, you didn't pay for it, nothing else. Pizza arrives at your door magically.
After those couple weeks had passed, weliveinpublic.com started to get a lot more press, and with the newfound media attention, the website started gaining a ton of traction. A lot of people were tuning in to see all the secret aspects of their life. Many people actually thought that they would be the first people to try to conceive live on the internet. Much like the later stages of Quiet, Josh and Tanya became a lot more comfortable with the experiment, and those people that wanted to see those secret aspects of their life got their wish.
I think we should have a contest. Who can motivate Josh to work out? Lose 15 pounds, right?
Sometimes in a relationship, you go through a stage where you don't talk for a while and you become distant.
Josh and Tanya were starting to become more and more distant with each other, and after constant bickering, things unfortunately came to a head. So just a warning here, the next clip I'm about to show may be disturbing for some viewers. It contains scenes of Josh initiating unwanted advances on Tanya. Viewers' discretion is advised.
Oh my God, and there's certain things a guy, just like, I'm in like deprivation right now. I'm bored. B-O-A-R-D, bored.
That's wood on a floor.
B-O-R-E-D. problem?
Someone might famous?
No one will see.
Hello? No, okay? I'm not gonna be your star. I'm not.
This is not about that. Every time I make a move to do anything, you block it.
Don't force me. Don't grab me like that. Josh, don't do this. You're scaring me. Stop it. Leave me alone. Don't let go of me. Don't hurt me. Don't grab me. Don't give me bruises. Don't hurt me. No, you're a jerk. I'm leaving right now.
I didn't hit you.
You grabbed me hard, Josh. I don't want to be treated like that ever. No.
So, shortly after this scene, Tanya left Josh and the experiment as a whole. Josh was now alone. Viewership started going down, and so was the publicity. For the remaining viewers still hanging around, they noticed that Josh seemed stressed out and under a lot of pressure. With his and Tanya's relationship deteriorating in front of them and the success of We Live in Public dying down, this made sense. But there was something else that was contributing towards his anxiety, and viewers quickly found out why. In April of 2000, the dot-com bubble burst. The market had one of its worst months in economic history, plummeting from its peak by over 50%. While all of the stocks on the market were suffering and going down, so was Josh's newly minted fortune.
Okay, I need to tell you, you got a negative balance in your checking account.
Okay, bye. Oh, I'm hitting bottom. I'm scared about me.
Yeah.
I put the place up on the market because I'm going to quit living in public at the end of this month or sooner. I lost most of my fortune.
Yeah.
Shoved the relationship out the door.
Yeah.
And have been living with, continuous surveillance of cameras.
Yeah.
That combination is not designed for mental stability and health.
That's right.
I'm sick.
Yeah,
I'm mentally sick right now.
Josh was going through one of the worst periods of his life, live on the internet for all to see. It wasn't long before he started to lose his mind.
Hi, Watchers! How are you? I'm nothing. I'm nothing. I've been watching you the whole time.
It's all part of our subconscious. It's all part of our subconscious. It's all part of our subconscious. Yes, it's all going to come out sooner or later. It's all got to come out sooner or later. It's all got to come out sooner or later. It's all got to come out sooner or later. It's all got to come out sooner or later. It's all got to come out.
Just a few months after it started, Josh knew it was finally time to end the experiment for the sake of his sanity and his finances. He had lost almost everything. After everything that had happened, Josh left New York and never came back. Josh relocated to one of his last remaining assets, an apple orchard that he invested in back when he had ridiculous cash flow. He used this time on the apple farm to help him reflect on his past and decide on what he would do next. In 2005, Josh wanted to give the internet another shot and sold the farm to pursue his next business, Operator 11. Operator 11 was another internet streaming company that was a mix of what Josh had learned from Pseudo and both of his experiments. The idea was that it was going to be a platform where anyone could start their own show and the business would support it and promote it. Basically, it was a partially decentralized Pseudo clone. Operator 11 had quite a promising start with thousands of users using the platform. Because of this, Josh decided to make a big bet and invested the rest of his money into the business so that Operator 11 would be ready for investment or sale. But unfortunately, the business didn't go anywhere, and Josh had just lost the little bit of money that he had left. As one does when you're broke, Josh left the US to live in Ethiopia for a few years. And this is where the story of Josh Harris ended for a while. As insane as his story is, Josh's legacy only ever really lived on within the New York tech and art sectors. It stayed that way until Andi Timoner came out with the award-winning 2009 documentary titled We Live in Public. As you may have already guessed, the documentary profiled the rise and fall of Josh Harris and became an instant cult classic. It even won the Grand Jury Documentary Prize at the Sundance Film Festival. But despite the success the film had during its festival run, it wasn't widely seen after being released to the public. This is a shame because We Live in Public has to be one of the best documentaries I've personally ever seen. I highly recommend checking it out if you haven't seen it already. You can find it pretty easily on iTunes and the Google Play Store. I actually bought the DVD so I could use footage from the documentary for this video, and I'm hoping to give it away to a viewer of this video. It's a pretty hard to find DVD, and it has one of the most incredible audio commentaries I've ever heard, right from the mouth of Josh Harris. To enter to win, just simply subscribe to the channel and leave a comment on this video. Once the video has 100 comments, I'll randomly select a winner. So after the release of the documentary, Josh came back to the States and currently lives in Las Vegas. From the last that's been heard, Josh is playing online poker in his apartment to support himself. And after some internet sleuthing, I came across his Twitter account, and it also looks like he tried to enter the world of NFTs but had little success. For the most part, this is where the story of Josh Harris ends. His story has to be one of the craziest internet adjacent tales that I've ever heard, and I hope more people will get to hear it in the coming years. There are actually a few rumors going around that Ben Stiller and Jonah Hill are working on a movie based on his life, but we'll have to wait and see if anything comes of that. Despite the flaws in his character and the failures of his projects, Josh Harris remains a notable figure in the history of the internet. He serves as a testament to the potential and the dangers of technology and even the human condition. My name is Luke Sims, and this has been Internet Underground. Thanks for watching.